What is kinetic energy? By the end of this video, you should be able to define kinetic energy and name two of its factors. You should be able to describe how the factors affect the amount of kinetic energy and also identify different types of kinetic energy. Let's get started. What is kinetic energy? Kinetic energy is energy that comes from movement. So we'll write energy. Kinetic energy is energy that comes from movement. Now, in the labs that you performed, you learned about the two factors of kinetic energy. One being speed, and the other one being mass. Also decreases. Let's take a closer look at the factors of kinetic energy. The first being speed. Another word for speed that scientists use is the word velocity. Speed or velocity is the measurement of how fast or slow an object is moving. Mass is a measurement of the amount of matter that makes up an object. Now let's talk about the relationship between these factors in kinetic energy. When speed increases, then kinetic energy also increases. But when the speed of an object decreases, then the kinetic energy of the object decreases. When mass increases, the amount of kinetic energy increases. And when the mass decreases, you guessed it, kinetic energy decreases. So, for instance, when we threw the can onto the clay, the amount of kinetic energy was greater than when you dropped the can on the clay, because throwing it increased the speed. Therefore, it increased the amount of kinetic energy. Here are a few real-life examples to consider. Let's take a look at the roller coaster. If people were added to the roller coaster cars, then what would happen to the kinetic energy? All right, let's add some people. By adding the people, what factor have we changed? Hopefully, you said mass. So the mass increased. So if people were added to the roller coaster cars, then the kinetic energy would increase because its mass increased. Let's take a look at the windmills. If the speed of the wind decreased, then the wind turbines would be going slower, and so therefore the amount of kinetic energy would be decreased or less. So on a not so windy day, the wind turbines are not making as much energy as on a windy day. All right, last but not least, let's look at the rider on the bike. If the rider stopped pedaling, then the amount of kinetic energy would do what? So by stopping pedaling, what's going to happen is that the speed is going to decrease. And so if we decrease the speed, then the kinetic energy is going to decrease. So let's go back to the question and fill it in. If the rider stopped pedaling, then the amount of kinetic energy would decrease because the bike's speed decreased. The word melts will help us remember the 5 types of kinetic energy. M stands for mechanical energy. This is energy due to the movement of an object. So I'm going to write energy due to the motion of an object. So when you see something moving, an object moving, Whether it's a living thing or a non-living thing, it has mechanical energy. Next is E for electrical energy. Electrical energy is energy that travels through the wires of a circuit. Anything that we plug in, those are things that use electrical energy. Like our computers, our phone chargers, our TVs. Anything we plug in has energy that travels through wires of a circuit. This is electrical energy. L is for light energy. This is energy that travels through electromagnetic waves. Again, we don't actually see the waves, but we see evidence of them when anything lights up. So, for example, when you turn a light bulb on, it lights up the room. Or when you're looking at your phone screen, that is light energy. The next one is T for thermal. This is energy that is created by the vibration or movement of molecules. When molecules are moving more quickly, that means there is more thermal energy. If molecules are moving more slowly, this means that there's not as much heat being generated, although it does have thermal energy. Some examples of thermal energy or sources of thermal energy are fire, a stove, and the sun. Last but not least, S is for sound. Sound is actually energy of vibrations transferred through matter. So anytime you hear something, whether it's music or singing or you're talking to your friend, you're hearing that because of sound energy. We've come to the end of the instructional part. Now it is time for you to review your notes and then write your answers to the lesson questions. Here are the 4 lesson questions. Make sure that you answer them completely, and when you are done, you can put your paper into your folder or your binder. And remember that your teacher is likely to ask to see these notes before you take the mastery check. Okay, I hope you understand a little bit more about kinetic energy.